Well, it's been a while since I've done a proper review, so I thought I would come back in style. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and today I am covering another book from one of my favorite contemporary authors, and that is BAM! Sacred by Dennis Lehane, which is the third book of the Kenzie and Gennaro private investigating series, which is, it's really good. So, yeah, let's get into it. After Darkness Take My Hand, which was the second book of the series, and I covered it below, I'll give you a link down below to check it out. I wasn't sure where Lehane was going to take our main heroes, Kenzie and Gennaro. The last book really pushed our scrappy heroes to their limits, and they came face to face with pure evil, and they weren't left completely unscathed. So how does Sacred hold up? How does Sacred follow up such a masterpiece of the noir genre? Well, I don't think it surpassed Darkness Take My Hand. I don't think many books could really surpass Darkness Take My Hand. That's a bit of a tall task. I mean, Darkness Take My Hand would probably be the best novel of any writer's career if it were any other writer who isn't Lehane. But don't get me wrong. Sacred is a damn fine crime novel, and definitely a good one to read during the summertime, since, you know, this takes place in the nice and sunny state of Florida. It's also why I waited until now to review it. Much like how summer operates, Sacred feels like a very nice and welcome break from the pure evil that was in Darkness Take My Hand. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of twisted shit in this book. It is a Lehane novel, after all, so that's kind of a given. But Sacred is far less intense than the previous book, and there's not just the pure, like I said, pure unadulterated evil that was in that book that they had to deal with last time. And it's more definitely about the awesome bits. This is definitely the book where our heroes win. And Lehane gives our heroes some well-deserved wins after the deeply scarring and traumatic events that were in the previous book. I really can't express that enough. I mean, Kenzie and Gennaro go up against a rich millionaire who wants his daughter back. He's also dying, which is not a spoiler, by the way. That's in, like, the first couple chapters of the book. His crazy-ass daughter who doesn't want to go back to him. A cult that's pretty much Scientology in all but name, and Patrick's mentor in private investigating, and none of it ever feels too unbelievable, or none of it ever gets out of hand. Everything comes together, and everything makes sense by the end of the story. It's definitely exaggerated, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the point of fiction, is to exaggerate things that are in the real world, but not to the point where it just feels ridiculous, which is the golden zone as far as I'm aware. But one of the places where I feel that Sacred succeeds is how it deepens the relationship between Kenzie and Gennaro. Now, we did get kind of this in Darkness Take My Hand a little bit, but Sacred, they finally have more time to finally figure out what the hell they're going on about, because we've seen through the previous two books, we've seen that they have a very complicated relationship, and there's definitely a lot of unresolved romantic tension with them. And we finally see some payoff to that tension, because they finally get together, which... that's kind of a spoiler. I apologize, but you know, it's not a big detractor from this book. And what we end up getting out of it is a surprisingly tender and sweet romance. And Lehane actually has the chops of writing a really great and compelling romance. I mean, in all the dark shit that they go through in these books, they do have each other, and it's a really beautiful thing to see them coming together after realizing that they really are the only two who can relate to each other in a meaningful way, and I think it's actually kind of beautiful. And you can definitely feel Patrick's love and appreciation for Angie in this story. But one of the other things I really like in this book, and Lehane is really good at this in the other two books as well, is the sense of history between the characters. None of these characters ever feel like they just kind of came out of nowhere. It feels like this world has been going on. This world has been moving forward since, well, I'll put it this way. It feels like the world has existed long before we saw Patrick and Angie's adventures in these books. And we particularly see this through Patrick's friendship with Jay Becker, his mentor in private investigating, who is kind of like this big hot shot. I really do like their relationship because, you know, Patrick is kind of a humble, you know, scrappy, kind of down on his luck PI, and Jay is more of a hot shot, kind of Magnum PI. I think if I recall right, they actually say he looks like Magnum PI. I think he has a mustache, so that's probably why why I always think Magnum PI when I think of that character. But I really like that even though we're introduced to Jay in this book, you really feel like he knows Patrick, and Patrick and him have had this friendship for a very long time. And I really like that it's you know, there's that friendly competition between the two of them, but they also are very good friends. And Jay and Patrick clearly care about each other, and of course, it is played for tragedy a little later in the book, but you know, no spoilers here. Yes, I really do like the history that Lehane puts into this book. The characters feel like real people, as I've noted in the other two books. They never feel like stereotypes, which is nice. Even when they do action hero stuff, it never feels ridiculous or over the top because, well, a lot of it feels believable in how they actually pull it off. So, now I'm just rambling. But where this book also really succeeds is the mystery and how Lehane uses setup and payoff. I mean, Lehane is already really good at setting up mysteries. I mean, the two mysteries in the two previous books are really good. Darkness Take My Hand is probably my favorite out of all of them, as I've said repeatedly already. But the mystery in this is really damn good. And I really like how he sets up the mystery. I really like how he pays off the mystery. Particularly, I love how he does the climax and the actual ending of the story. The mystery in this book is actually really compelling, and it's how Patrick and Angie solve this case is what makes the book really, really sing and makes this book really awesome for me. There's a scene in this novel that reminds me of L.A. Confidential, where Exley tells Vincennes that he called his father's killer Rollo Tomasi, and eventually Vincennes uses that fact to key Exley in on who is behind the conspiracy in that book, as well as in the film. A lot of people are probably very familiar with the film. And Lehane pulls a very similar trick here with his characters. There's a certain phrase that Jay and Patrick have that keys him in on the mystery on what's actually going on here. But I won't specify what it's about, because you're going to have to read that for yourself, unfortunately. But how Lehane finishes the mystery, and how he gets to the climax, and how everyone is dealt with, is really, really good. And Patrick and Angie deliver ownage on the bad guys. Like I said, this is the book where our heroes win, and it feels really good. Lehane really knows how to do that, surprisingly. I mean, he doesn't always have his characters win. I mean, a lot of his books are really dark and sad, and you don't always get what you want. But this is the book where, like, the heroes win, and it's actually probably the happiest ending of the series so far. Well, up until this point, anyway. And it makes this all the more sweeter is that he doesn't always do this often. But Lehane knows that sometimes you gotta let your heroes win. If they won at a huge cost or just lose all the time, it would probably get tiresome to the audience. But you sometimes have to let them win, because, you know, sometimes they just fucking deserve it, okay? They went through a lot of shit in the previous book. They needed this. They needed Sacred. They really, really needed Sacred, for lack of a better word. But like I said, it might be the most uplifting ending the series has had, at least so far, because I've read all 6 of these books, and it's really good. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book, though. I think Sacred is a well-written, engaging thriller with a really deeply compelling mystery, and also really complex, interesting characters. Patrick Kenzie is a really great noir protagonist. He definitely has that world weariness that you would expect from a noir protagonist of his caliber. And I think that these books are really good. It really cements Lehane as one of the best crime writers living today, who is not James Ellroy. But I digress. yeah, definitely check out Sacred. It's a really good book. I mean, with Lehane, a lot of people always ask me where I should start with Lehane, where they should start with Lehane, and that's actually a video I would like to make at some point, because the thing with Lehane is that you can kind of start anywhere with his books. I mean, yeah, this is a series, and Sacred is the third book of a series, but you could read this book and probably get into it just fine. I mean, that's the thing with Lehane. Lehane isn't like one of those authors you read in stages, or one of those authors that um, like you struggle to get into. You can kind of jump in wherever and you'll probably be fine. Like, you'll probably be a little confused by the continuity a little bit, but you'll mostly understand what's going on in Sacred for the most part. It's about like 90% you'll probably understand. There's like the 10% of just the continuity from the previous books and spoilers from the previous books that you might be like, what? But you could read this book and you'll be fine. And that's kind of the hard thing with Lehane, because you can kind of just start anywhere. And I actually do want to make a video about where you could start with Lehane, because I think that's actually something that people ask me a lot, and I think is well worth answering. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That is all I have for today. If you want to check me out, I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Discord and hang out with me on there. I love hearing from you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. Click that like button. As my friend John Minton from Talking Story likes to say, it feels good when you press that like button. I can confirm it for a fact that it feels good when you like that video. And also, if you've read Sacred, tell me what you thought of it. I think it's a really good book. Definitely not to the heights of Darkness Take My Hand or Mystic River, but still a really damn fine crime novel. This would definitely be a really good one to read. But, yeah. That's kind of all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this review, and hopefully it wasn't too rambly. Until next time.